Welcome to the world headquarters of the Mass Preacher, broadcasting from somewhere partially underground on this continent. I entitled my teaching this morning, Return to Sender. Let's look at Matthew chapter 12. Matthew chapter 12. Verse 25. And Jesus knew their thoughts, and said unto them, Every kingdom divided against himself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself cannot stand. And verse 28. But if I cast out devils by the Spirit of God, then the kingdom of God is come unto you. And then one more verse I want to read, and then tie them together. John chapter 20. John chapter 20, verse 23. Whosoever sins ye remit, they are remitted unto them. And whosoever sins ye retain, they are retained. I was going through some old newsletters and magazines, and there was one here from a group, and I don't even want to tell you the year. It makes me feel old. I'm surprised I still have it. But there's on the cover of this magazine, there's a box, and it says refused, return to sender. And the mailing label says from Satan to the believer, to who is to the believer. And I thought about this sermon when the sermon just popped in my head, these verses. So with that picture in mind, if you go back to Matthew 20, Jesus is returning this trip that the religious leaders are trying to put on him. They're saying that you do these manifestations of God, you do this healing, you do this casting demons out by Beelzebub, by the prince of devils, by Satan you do these things. That wasn't very nice. And so Jesus, in effect, is saying here in these verses, excuse me, return to sender. No, dude, I do not take this. The verse in John about whosoever sins you remit or amend or retain. I don't know what that all means. I read some commentaries and I don't know what that means. But there's something about our ability in how we talk. And I encourage people, whether you're a young believer or an older believer, that you arrive in a situation and you're at work, you're in a family setting, you're in a church setting, and someone wants to give you a trip. And it's not a good trip. What you need to do is write on that box, that package, return to sender. I do not accept the trip you're trying to lay on me. Through the years and in having this YouTube channel, this is what I have tried to do in the church, is to return to sender doctrinal positions, thoughts, ideas that have come from religious demons, trips that people have tried to put on me and other people. And my encouragement is for people who hear this teaching to realize they have a right to return to sender. Sometimes denominations get very heavy-handed on whatever issue it is. And you have a right as a believer to study the scriptures for yourself and say, this is not there. Return to sender. Lord, I just pray for everyone who hears this, Father, and that you would deal with them to be bold and have a bold spirit to stand and say, this is not right. And there's always a time to say something. There's a time to refrain from saying something. And I pray for wisdom for every person hearing this, Lord, to know when it's time. But when it's our time and it's our right to do something, then we will take that to return unwanted things to the sender. Signing off from somewhere partially underground, Mass Preacher bids you good night.